is that we know, at least in this model, and if you've come to my Energetic Intelligences workshop, you'll have a little bit more feel on this, but I'll explain enough and I'll give you an experience of it enough so you'll get it. And if you don't, please just tell me. So there's life force energy. This is like the basic energy of life. Those trees out there are vibrating with life force energy, and they have photosynthesis, and thus they produce oxygen. It's this unbelievable thing, and they suck in carbon dioxide. That's life force. I'm processing, metabolizing water that I've been drinking. That requires life force. You know, when you fight off a cold, that requires life force. Your hormones, your breath, your heartbeat. The basic fundamental operations of any living thing are operating on life force. Now, life force is the most basic form of energy in us. Oftentimes, as kids, when we felt that nothing was safe and we could not have a sense of certainty at an early developmental age, or even in the womb, or depending on what your belief system is, it may go beyond that. But if we lose that sense of the ability to have some certainty at really pivotal times, we become very challenged in our expression of life force. And so one of the first things we know is that we lose our breath. Our bodies become hard and rigid. You just feel like, oh my God, am I going to have enough energy to get through my life? Am I going to have enough energy to get through my day? Am I going to have enough energy to live the life I want to live? So I'm just going to do everything I can to keep everything as stable and certain as possible. Really controlling people. Oftentimes you're so terrified of just, you know, stuff. I'm working on my language. Stuff, you know, kind of slipping out from under them because it so challenges this need for certainty, for constancy. Now, constancy is good on one level, but who here thinks that constancy is great for your personal evolution? No, it's not. So, hence, life force is totally important, and we need it because on top of that then builds the next evolution of energy was the emotional energy. Basically, what emotional energy is, that's the juice of emotion. And from an evolutionary standpoint, it occurred in reptiles and mammals so that they could, you know, basically feel something and then do something really quick to change basically their need to protect or eat. You know, the 4 F's: fight, flee, feed, and procreation. That's... Okay, so emotional energy is really important. Emotional energy is associated with our need for newness, you know, our need for something fresh. It's the need for change. It's the need for adventure. It's the need for to feel things, you know. And you know when you're someone who has a strong emotional energy, they just love excitement. They love newness. And it's just, I'm so happy. Oh my God. You know, it's just a ride. And I love people like that. Lynn and I, for instance, I tend to be more that way. Lynn's not so much that way. And that's cool. It's balanced, right? So emotional energy is really great. Now, I've explained in detail these energetic intelligences, and we won't get so much into, like, some of them can be easy to access, hard to access. It doesn't matter. Just know that all of these, on some level, have to be in the right combination for you in this container of you. So, the next one would be the mental energy. This is something pretty unique to human beings. Animals very much have a consciousness. They don't necessarily have a fixed form sense of self that differentiates them in the way that we do. So the mental energy is about me and mine. Either or. Cultures, rules, my sense of self, who I am, my need to defend a self. It's our ability to set up a structure of a society and a culture and then have a bunch of cultural rules that go along with it. It's the ability to see the big picture, to make connections, to have the awareness of lots of different things. It's the awareness to begin to be aware of itself, to ask better and better questions. The mental energy is really strongly associated, though, developmentally with a need for significance, a need to be a somebody. Whereas the emotional energy just wants to prove it's not a nobody. The mental energy just really wants to be significant, to show it's a somebody. And developmentally, emotional energy starts in the terrible twos and goes up till about teenage years. And then teenage years, really this developmentally, the mental energy kicks in. You guys have kids and you have teenagers. right? So that kicks in. It's like, no, I'm somebody, this is who I am. You know? So it's the need for significance. Now, most adults never actually get past this.
But the significance comes from the emotional and not the mental?
No, the need for significance is associated with this energy.
The emotional?
No, the mental energy.
The mental energy.
Yes, dear.
So in that realm, what you're saying is if somebody has arrested development, they may never be able to pass through that emotional into the mental realm.
Absolutely.
And you just explained something that how many years of therapy never got to. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That makes so much sense.
Cool. Yeah, no, absolutely. And although they may be able to access some level of mental energy, because we all have some of it, they're going to default to the center of gravity, which would be the emotional intelligence.
Yeah, so it's always going to go back. It's going to default. It's going to look at
That's right, because then there's a certain triad of change, there's a certain set of perceptions, behaviors, and structures, but once you work with the triad, then it becomes development can be facilitated pretty easily. And then, of course, there's the spiritual energies. Now, this is beautiful. This is hard to talk about, and I'm certainly not an expert, but what I can tell you is that we are made of this beautiful stuff of life, and that ultimately, at the end of the day, we are all one. It's the experience of oneness, it's the experience of unitive consciousness, of Christ consciousness, of Buddha nature, of the cosmic Christ, of this experience of the pure vastness of our being, that in that true state, there's not a you and there's not a me, there's just this we-ness, there's this I-ness ultimately. And it's not really for me to talk so much about. The experience of it is the most important thing. What I will tell you is the experience of that soulful connection, of that spirit-centered, higher intelligence, is the need to express one's gifts, one's soul gifts, to make a soulful contribution for the benefit of all. And when we're not doing that, it's actually painful. That it's painful when we drop our standards because we tasted it and we know we're not doing it.
Really?
So it's about the soulful contribution. It's about the embodied experience of oneness. It's ultimately about transcending everything but including all of it at the same time. You know, for years I practiced transcendental meditation. The thing that they never really taught was that it's also about the inclusion of everything, about samsara in nirvana. That's the tantric way, so that's really beautiful. So I just am excited about this process tonight because we're made of life, force, emotion, mental, and spiritual. And ultimately, the more congruent the triad is, the more higher levels of energy that we can continue to hold. And we're out of balance, and we're incongruent. That's when we drop down, we feel stuck, nothing seems like it's working. Shoot yourself in the foot. It's a frustrating path. But when the triangle is congruent and that energy comes in, it's pretty unbelievable how much we can create and do and all that kind of stuff.